Hello, and thank you for watching. This is John again. We're going to continue on with the grass bird's tail, grass sparrow's tail sort of playlist, and we're going to expand the scope of the previous video of the three planes circles. Before we kind of had both hands together in those circles. Remember, we had coronal, vertical, horizontal. What we're going to do next is actually split them. So we're going to kind of open up the practice a little bit more. Some of these you might have seen in either Qigong or silk reeling exercises. There might be warm-ups, stretches, or things like that as well. So some of these might be familiar. Also might be familiar if what I like to do if I'm teaching postures, as you can tell by making a huge playlist of just one technical posture with 4 parts, is that I'll actually break it down and then put it together. So I like to break down. A lot of times what I'll do is start with the arms and hands, and then review the stepping and put the two together. You might have seen in that, if someone else, if you've learned from, or if we go further in some of these videos, you might see some of that as well. In Chen style with walking obliquely, and even in Yang style with things like, was it raised hands? Not so much raised hands as hand strum the lute. Things like that. So we're going to do that with the hands. And then in subsequent videos, we're going to add the stepping, not only to hold the ball, but also to the different planes, and this kind of play around with how we can do that. So the first one we're going to go over is we're going to review how to take that coronal, the one that's flat, so if you cut yourself in half this way, how we can kind of play with that. And again, if I go one way, I want to be able to go the other. Might be a phrasing issue there, but that algebraic idea, what you do going to one direction, you should be able to do going the other. Same thing is going to apply even if we're now splitting the hands, because we're working on a sphere, we're working on all the different angles of that. So if you're talking about an application, it's not always just going to be, oh, I can just do this, or I can just do that. A lot of times it is going to be open up and splitting out. I remember when my teacher first did that to me when we were doing push hands, all of a sudden it went from just here the whole time and trying to just open it up, and I was for a long time after that. And I know with Yang style, one of the things that we've noticed in our research for Yang style Taiji and the philosophy of push hands behind that is to open up the opponent. Again, it's that sort of pung, that expansive sort of energy, and open them up. And my sort of extra Swijiao training, it was like, man, you get on the inside of that jacket, you're in a much better position to do any number of things. Tearing, pulling, turning, hooking back up for like neck surrounding or anything like that. You get your hands on the inside of their arms and start holding onto that jacket, split them open. You've kind of got a little bit of the high ground there with that. So we're going to start again, like I said, with the coronal. Now remember, the coronal was this flat circle in front of us. So as we're going with both hands this way, and both hands that way, and I'm still shifting my hips in that 90-degree cone, 45, 45 if we're going off of my center here, and I'm still pushing from heel to heel on my feet. So, and instead of going this way, all one direction, we'll split. So you can split, pull down, and you can think of lift or gather. You can gather like almost cross wrists, like you might see in, I've seen it in, especially Yang has, the cross wrists and the return to mountain with the tiger. Chen style has that as you come out with the Lao Jia coming in here to come out. You can cross wrists or you can lift up, almost getting into that Sun style where it comes in here. I've seen some Wudong Qigong practices that come in here too, so as well as the Yi Chuan gathering in here. So there's precedent for that and lifting up. Kicks, yang style. Works on that plane, that splitting. So we're going to pull down, gather up, gather the leaves, open, expand. So we can breathe in and breathe out. So we breathe in, gather in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, gather, breathe out, expand. Breathe in, breathe out. So that's going one way. You can keep practicing that. Now we go one way, go the other. So we open, there's that pung, expanding, lifting up. And again, we can come in and press down. We can come in and almost like we're grabbing and pulling down. Okay, pull down. Open, over, expand, pull down. This is still that coronal circle. So instead of one big one in front of you, you've almost got two that you're working both sides. Excuse me. So we work that circle, those big circles right in front. Let's do one more here. Now if we were to go opposite, have something going this way, something going this way. Oh, what does that look like? If you know the postures, oh, we've got wave hands like moving clouds, or cloud hands, or two hands spiral in front of the body, depending upon how that goes. So that's the coronal way that you can practice splitting the coronal into those different factors. Now again, if we add the idea of having all those standing postures, we've got all sorts of things that work on that sort of plane in front with that, working on the whole body as a sphere. So that's our coronal. Next up, I'm going to do the vertical. And there's going to be a little bit of extra time in this because the way to kind of play with that's a little bit different. For me, anyway, again, this is me, this is just stuff that I've been training, I've been doing that I think kind of helps get people kind of in the idea of using the whole body in that rounded spherical idea, starts teaching those different planes of the body and contiguous round circle exercises. Very basic building block into building then the postures and then building the routines around those postures. So next one, vertical. So we saw vertical before is almost sort of like those train arms. We come back in and did that strictly like on sort of exercise. First thing I want to do is we're almost thinking about like a bicycle. So we have that like bicycle sort of idea. You might have seen that, you can break down a guard coming in that way. It's almost like a small Santi. Also, if we look at Chen style, we've got those walking obliquely postures. So this one actually you can kind of blow up into a lot of things that you see, but when it breaks back down into working that circle. Start, hands in front, my right, your left, forward, pull down. Again, we're working that circle. So I'm working that circle. It's coming up, forward, over, and down. At the same time, look, there's that middle line where they cross. And when one is at its bottom, the other is at its top. When one is pulling back, one is pushing forward. And again, there's that middle. And at that middle is when they begin to switch. So we're moving forward and back, up and down. Not just sort of one thing. but we're working everything on this. Almost like 4 directions of 4 different things just here. So we have forward and back, down and up, pull back, push forward. Again, that bicycling. I'm still moving my hips. I'm not really shifting as much, but if you want to shift, you can shift either the opposite, almost the reverse, so you almost have a tearing quality, or you can go on the same. And you can almost then think about triangulating with it. Or you can even triangulate to the outside. That almost has an extra to it, the 2. But we can just keep it real simple right in here. Good. And to come backwards, a couple different ways for this. You can reverse it, just strictly reverse it. So it almost has a in, pulling in, almost like you've got it like a rope, like you're pulling in a rope. You can have that pulling in. And this is where you can almost start getting into that hand strum the lute. That pull back, lift up. There's where that lock and break is with hand strum the lute. Again, almost that bicycling has a pulling in, but it also has down with it too. So there's still up and down, there's still forward and back. Forward and back. And again, with internals, it's going to have that opposite, because we're not using just strict muscle strength. We're using, as weird as this sounds, the sort of fluid pressures in the bodies and the whole body. So if I want something to be that way, strong, bodging, boom, I've got to have something coming back. You know, it's the same thing. You drop a big rock, yeah, there might be a big splash, but there's a boom in with that as well. And all boom, boom, boom. So you need to have both of those factors in. So we can bicycle it back, almost like that pulling. Or you can even think of it like curved back arms, also called repulse monkey. And here we have, this is the yang version with the palm up. You can also do the Chen version with the palm down. And again, moving the hips. I'm going to stick with the yang version for this because when we talk about grass bird's tail, I'm using mostly a yang posture. So I'm going to keep my consistency with that. You can choose to do either. So I'm doing a whole Tai Chi Bob Ross thing for you. You can do whatever you like. It's your Tai Chi. However it makes you happy. Wonder if I can use that as my shtick. Tai Chi Bob Ross, or Bob Ross of Tai Chi. I'm not that cool. Wish I were. I'm not that frickin' Buddha-like either. I'm not gonna lie. Good. So there's a couple different ways to do the now vertical circles, splitting the hands. It becomes more complex. So when you, instead of just doing this, it's almost, you're still doing the same things, but now you've added a complexity to this too. And it's a complexity that as you gain more sensitivity internally, you're going to start feeling, ooh, all sorts of, does it do that? Yeah, it does. It's interesting, is like, I was kind of asked, you know, what it would kind of feel like with the Dantian, and the best thing I could think of is there used to be, umpteen years ago or whatever, some that gelin, I don't even remember what the actual product was, but or the name of the company, but it was like an insert for shoes to help you feel more comfortable in your shoes, and it was some sort of gel technology thing, and it had like this blue ball that kind of bounced in and kind of manipulated around and everything like that. And that's kind of what it feels like. You know, sometimes you might have that almost mechanical you know, like when we're doing this, there's like almost more of a, you can feel it leading doing this, but there are times when you're changing direction, especially if you're doing push hands or there's another person involved. Does all sorts of stuff like that. So this is a way to start training some of the complexity of that internal movement as well. So last plane circle is the horizontal. So the horizontal, you saw we were doing this like when we talk about coming from on into single whip in yang style. There's a whole idea even in with Swaijao. You're pulling and you grab the jacket and you start pulling around. When they start getting those legs up, that balance cup, boom, pull them down. I've actually had it done to me a couple of times and it's effective. Especially if like the first time I did, I was like, what the heck? And then pulled down, I was like, what just happened? You can kind of cut that circle. It's the sort of thing. Well, someone's really good at Bagua with you. Maybe you don't play Bagua at them. You play Xingyi, so you cut the circle. But this will actually help reduce the ability of the other person to cut your circle because you're opening and manipulating things on those other ways instead of just the one. So we had this for a horizontal. So now, and this is definitely something I've seen in Chen Tzu Gong, which is a silk-rolling exercise, not from Chen Jiao Wang, like the Chen Tzu Jing, but another person. I believe the surname is Feng. Come in, push back, and open to the sides, and then gather. So you can breathe in, pull in, turn the wrists, so the fingers are actually coming in almost like you're coming around. If you've ever done like eagle, come out, around, and gather. Gather in, twist, open, expand, and I've got so much cracking and all sorts of stuff going in there. My shoulders and in my arms, stuff's opening up, getting rid of some of those little micro blockages and all that stuff I've got built up from like doing push-ups and dips and all that other stuff. Carrying in packages of water bottles, getting that to open up. Do a few more. Now again, we're going to reverse. So to reverse, we open, gather around, and push forward. Open, gather around, push forward. Open, gather, push. I'll show you a couple places where we have something similar to this, both in Yang style Taiji and Cheng style Bagua. We're going to open, gather, push. Pull up the willow is something that might be named with that. So it's almost like you're coming around, you get nice and low, you hook around the other person's waist, you gather and lift them off. It's effective. My teacher's done it to me. I've been able to do it to a couple other people training. It work. A couple more. Again, still some of those little pops and everything there in the delts. The deltoid. Good. So you might see this if you're doing Yang style. Again, we have return to mountain with the tiger. So we come in here. There's that big, boom. Maybe I should reverse it here. We've got this that comes around into that back-to-back palm that flips open into Liu. It might you might see it listed again as return the mountain with tiger and then follow through with the rest of the Liu Ji on in terms of how they list the postures from like grass bird's tail. But again, it has that idea. and you're kind of under, you step behind, you grab, you can push out. Cheng Bagua has that. You know, you come out and here and out. I'll be up a little bit so you can see, and out. It's got, oh, grab, and come through. So, more ways to expand playing those 3 planes, those circles on the 3 planes. So still coronal, still vertical, still horizontal, but now we have ways to open that up and expand it and start building the sensitivity and start building the word I'm looking for is escaping me at the moment. Almost the maturity and the intricacies of some of those internal movements, building up sort of a record and an exercise and a practice of making that more than it was. So like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will be back with more things to help getting into Grasp the Bird's Tail. Again, I'm planning on stepping for hold the ball, stepping for the circles. The thing with the circles is cool. You can, any step you want. Actually, any Tai Chi posture, you should be able to make in any step you want. But it's really interesting how to just really play with it with the circles. I've had some fun with that. So, thank you much.